Hello and welcome to the How's My Waterway, a tool for exploring your water quality webinar. My name is Colby Richardson with Eastern Research Group, and I'll be helping to support today's webinar. Before we get started, let's review a few housekeeping items. Audio is available through your computer's mic and speakers or by telephone. Your call-in number and access code are in the control panel box on the right-hand side of your screen. All attendees have been muted to minimize background noise. If you have a question during the webinar, please type it into the questions box on the upper right-hand side of your screen. We will have a dedicated time to answer questions at the end of the webinar. A fact sheet on How's My Waterway is available for download in the handouts section of your control panel. And lastly, if you're experiencing any technical difficulties, please contact us via the questions box and we'll try to troubleshoot the issues. And now we have a few poll questions for the audience. The first poll question we have is how many people are viewing this webcast? And you should see the poll question pop up. I'll give you about 15 to 20 seconds to complete it, and we'll move on to the next poll question. Great, thank you so much for all of those responses. We have another poll question. It's how many years of experience do you have with green infrastructure? And again, I'll give you about 15 to 20 seconds to complete. Thank you again for answering that poll question. And the last poll question we have is, have you previously used the first version of How's My Waterway? Thank you so much for those responses. And it looks like the majority of the audience has not used the first version. So thank you again, we really appreciate it. Now, I would like to introduce today's moderator, Matt King. Matt works in the EPA's Office of Wastewater Management, where he is a member of the Green Infrastructure team. His work focuses on engaging national stakeholders to encourage the implementation of green infrastructure practices and prevent stormwater pollution. Matt, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Colby, and thanks to our attendees for joining us today and for your interest in green infrastructure and the How's My Waterway tool. The purpose of our Green Infrastructure webcast series is to explore where and how green infrastructure is being deployed across the stormwater sector, connect stakeholders, and showcase the variety of environmental, economic, and social benefits that green infrastructure can help achieve. Today's webinar will focus on a beneficial planning and water quality monitoring tool called How's My Waterway. We're very fortunate to have a couple of great speakers with us today that can help demonstrate the capabilities of that tool and discuss its utility for green infrastructure practitioners. So why are green infrastructure practitioners engaged in the work that they do? It's because stormwater runoff is a major cause of water pollution across the United States. When rain falls on our roofs, streets, and parking lots in cities and their suburbs, the water can't soak into the ground as it should. Stormwater drains through gutters, storm sewers, and other engineered collection systems and is discharged directly into nearby water bodies. Along the way, it can pick up trash, bacteria, heavy metals, nutrients, and other pollutants. These contaminants degrade water quality and threaten public health. These are issues where green infrastructure can help make a difference. The presence of nutrients and other pollutants can turn stormwater runoff into a serious threat to public health and the environment. Focusing on nutrients for a moment, nitrogen and phosphorus in waterways can result in abnormal algal growth in water bodies. Some species of algae secrete toxins that threaten drinking water supplies and aquatic life. On the left-hand side of the screen is a drinking water intake in Lake Erie, offshore from Toledo, Ohio, where algal blooms threatened the public water supply. As algae die and decompose, they deprive water bodies of oxygen, and this can create aquatic dead zones. On the right-hand side of the screen is the Gulf of Mexico. The Mississippi River drains to this water body, carries nutrients with it, and you can clearly see the algal blooms that are occurring off the coast. This is where green infrastructure can play a valuable role in protecting public health and the environment. So what exactly is green infrastructure, and what's the difference between green and gray infrastructure? The answer to that question is a matter of intent and function. Gray infrastructure is designed to move stormwater away from the built environment. By contrast, green stormwater infrastructure uses plants, soils, and other media to capture, treat, and evapotranspire stormwater at its source. The term green infrastructure encompasses a wide variety of practices that function across multiple scales. These practices include land conservation, downspout disconnection, rainwater harvesting, rain gardens, planter boxes, green roofs, and more. What's the connective thread between all of these practices? They manage water where it falls instead of conveying it somewhere else and creating a downstream pollution problem. One of green infrastructure's greatest assets as a stormwater management tool is its flexibility and scalability. Green infrastructure practices aren't one size fits all. Communities can create stormwater management solutions that fit their particular needs. But as with any infrastructure project, successful implementation of green infrastructure requires knowledge of local water quality conditions, strategic decision making, and the ability to communicate water quality benefits. And that's where tools like How's My Waterway come into the picture. I'd like to introduce our audience to our speakers, Stephanie Santell and Kiki Schneider. Stephanie Santell has been with the US EPA since 2009, starting her career in planning and organizational management before joining the Office of Water. In the Office of Water, she's worked in many diverse Clean Water Act programs and on various cross-cutting policy efforts, including the Water Quality Standards Program, the Clean Water Act 303D program, the Front Office Water Policy Staff, and most recently as the Special Assistant in the Office of Wetlands, Oceans, and Watersheds. In addition to How's My Waterway, Stephanie has performed several cross-cutting program initiatives in the Office of Water related to nutrients, ocean acidification, hazard mitigation, environmental finance, stakeholder engagement, and leadership with resiliency activities across the national water programs. Stephanie holds a Bachelor of Science in Biology from the University of Rochester and a master's degree in public policy with a concentration in environmental policy from American University. Our second speaker, Kiki Schneider, has worked for the EPA since 2010, first in the Office of Environmental Information and now in the Office of Water. Kiki has a background in user-centered design and environmental policy. She spent most of her time at EPA developing websites and applications that are easily accessible and user-friendly. Prior to EPA, she spent time at the University of Maryland doing research on technology with children as design partners, where she learned a great deal from the kids about design and looking at things through fresh eyes. I'd like to hand things over to our first speaker, Stephanie. Take it away, Stephanie.
Thanks, Matt. And hello, everyone. Thank you so much for your interest and taking time today to learn more about the How's My Waterway application. And special thanks to Matt and the Green Infrastructure Program for hosting both Kiki and I. Today, we're going to introduce you to a new online application called How's My Waterway, which was designed to provide the general public with information about the condition of their local waters based on data that states, federal, tribal, local agencies, and others have provided to EPA. And How's My Waterway is open and available for use for many different stakeholders that can use the app to learn about their water, explore water quality data, and find out what's happening in their own communities anytime and anywhere. So next slide. So we mentioned in the poll that this version of How's My Waterway is actually an updated version of what was previously available, and it was publicly released in June of this past year. How's My Waterway provides the public with an easily accessible and understandable picture of water quality and at a community, state, and national scale. So if you can imagine, all of that information that is collected at each of those scales runs in the background and kind of packages it in a way that's easily understandable by many folks in the public and nonprofit organizations and people that often work outside of the water management space. So that information is displayed on these three scales, which we'll talk a little bit more about in a minute. But to give you a flavor of what each scale captures, so we have the community level, which you'll learn about the health of waters in the community, any identified water quality issues, why the issues matter, and what's being done to restore or protect the waters in that community or that local area. And you can also find out more about drinking water right in your own community, and in terms of drinking water source. And you can also discover if waters in your community are suitable for swimming or eating fish and if they support aquatic life. So that is connected to kind of what we call the designated uses of those water bodies. Moving to the state level, you can choose to find any given state and the basic facts about that state's waters, summaries of specific water quality assessments, a statewide survey of water quality where available, and also state drinking water metrics. And then moving on to the national level, you can learn on this page about the quality of water resources across the nation. So lakes, rivers and streams, wetlands, and coastal areas are all included. And you can also find out more about what are the main challenges to those specific water body types and water resources nationwide. You can also find information here about national drinking water quality and national drinking water metrics that we collect and have information for. So overall, the app is very map-centric and mobile-friendly, and it really works on all different screen sizes, ranging from your desktop computer to a tablet to that mobile phone that you'll always have in your hand. So if you're out on location, you know, you're standing at the edge of a water body at a beach, you want to know more, you can pull up How's My Waterway on your phone and locate yourself and actually go ahead and do that. And at each level, you can find information related to several different common types of interest or topics that are very familiar with the general public. So drinking water, as I mentioned, ability to eat the fish in that area, and performing more recreational activities like swimming and aquatic life. So that's just a little bit of an overview of what the app is and the general information that you can find there. So Colby, if you can advance. Okay. So How's My Waterway, as I mentioned, you can explore waters at the community, the state, and the national level. So moving from left to right on this particular slide, you can see the picture of the local water body or watershed area, a little snapshot of what you will find when you actually look for a specific state, and then, of course, a little snapshot of what you can find on the national tab, as we call it. So in How's My Waterway, even the information is scalable. So let's dive in a little bit more to each specific tab. So for the community tab, or for the local tab, you can find information on water quality in your local watershed, per the map, information on swimming, eating fish, and aquatic life, restoration and protection efforts that are occurring within this space, as well as permitted discharger information, identified water quality issues like impairments that have been documented by the state, and also discharge violations, local drinking water information, and then water monitoring information. So you can actually pull up the monitoring sites within that given area. Moving to the state page, you will find general information about that specific state's water program. So summaries of specific water assessments, a statewide survey of water quality were available according to that given state's program. And then of course, state drinking water metrics. And the information about water assessments is really interesting because it does provide accurate and complete information on the uses of those water bodies according to the goals and the uses that are set by the state. And then moving on to the national page, we can see the quality of water resources, of course, nationwide, and what some of those key challenges are that are occurring and that we're working to address. You can also find national drinking water information and metrics there as well. So what does all of this tell us? It really helps us tell a comprehensive water story. The app is really useful for providing the general public with this usable, tangible, meaningful information that they can relate to. It also helps communicate progress that the states, tribes, and EPA are making towards restoring or protecting their water quality. And it can even serve as an engagement tool to really get the public involved and understanding impacts on their water and the issues related to their water resources. Next slide. Okay, so I am going to turn it over actually to Kiki for this slide.
Okay, great. Thanks, Stephanie. So this slide, as Stephanie mentioned, we're pulling in data from all different sources at EPA and beyond. We have some data coming in from the USGS too. And so when we pull this data in from 8 different databases across these agencies, all the data we're pulling is based on a web service. So we're not storing any data in How's My Waterway. We're just accessing it from other sources and pulling it in. And it shows up in real time once the data is approved in the other databases. If it changes to an updated set from say you had 2018 data, now you have 2020 data, and it will show up automatically. So we don't have to do anything. We just pull in the data as it comes into a database. We pull it right into How's My Waterway. So we're integrating the data from across these 8 databases that we're pulling from at the moment. And previously, the public would have to go to all different websites at EPA, one website to find drinking water data, one website to find enforcement and compliance data on those water bodies, on those dischargers, another database to find TMDLs, and also another database to find grants. So we're pulling this in so you don't have to go to several different databases and look through, read several different PDFs. You can just put in your zip code or city or a location, and we will pull the data for you, and to visualize it in a nice way so you don't have to read all the PDFs unless you want to. And I'll show that later. So we also have stories. We have some success stories in here about some non-point source solution programs that I'll show, and we want to pull in more stories in the future. And most of the content we have is interactive in How's My Waterway. And as you can see on this slide, there's 2 screenshots from mobile phones. As Stephanie mentioned, our application is responsive, so it works on all different screen sizes, and that was one of the main goals of this app, was to design it so you could access it on all different screens. Can you advance to the next slide, please? Okay, so in a minute, I'm going to walk you through a demo of the live application, talk about some of its features, and as I'm going through it, make notes of what you think is helpful and some suggestions for the future, because this even though this application is public, we continue to improve it and work on it and find new exciting data sets and new ways of communicating that data as we go along here. So we're happy to take suggestions, and you can ask those in the chat. So with that, I will go into the live demo now, which I share my screen. Okay, looks like you can see my web browser. Okay, great. This is the live application. When you come here, you can start by entering a location in the search box, or you can use your location and it will try to pinpoint where you are if that is turned on in your browser. And you'll land on the nearest small watershed, or HUC 12, that is closest to the location you put in. If you want to jump to one of the 3 levels Steph talked about, you can click on community and learn more about what you're going to find. You can click on state to go search for your state, or you can click on national if you just want to see national level information. And the 4 topics that were mentioned earlier, you can jump right into as well if you want: swimming, eating fish, aquatic life, and drinking water. These were the 4 main topics the public was most interested in. I apologize about the noise you might be hearing from upstairs. There's a bunch of kids running around in my house. Hopefully it won't last too long. So I'm gonna put in Washington, D.C., because that's where I'm right now. Okay, Washington, D.C. You can put in a zip code. You can actually just put in a place like Mount Rushmore if you want, and it will zero in on the nearest small watershed. Okay, so when I press go, it's pulling all that data that we were talking about from all those different databases. Interesting. So hold on one second. Let me try that again. Did not land on where I wanted it to land on. Okay. Okay, there we go. Worked that time. So when you put in the location, you'll land on this overview page of your watershed. And this outline here, the dashed line, is the outline of the HUC 12, the closest small watershed to that, to Washington, D.C., where I put in. Obviously, there's other watersheds in D.C. And if you don't like where you've landed, you can click outside of the boundary, and it will ask you if you want to update to that location if you didn't land where you thought you would land. So when you come here, you'll see we have some stats on your watershed. There's 21 water bodies here that have been assessed by DC. So if your state or District of Columbia has assessed the water, it will show up here. And if they've submitted it to EPA, it will show up here. There's also 128 water monitoring locations that you can turn on. So you press that button and all the water monitoring locations will show up. And this is data that has been submitted by all kinds of different groups to the water quality portal. And this is showing EPA and USGS data in this watershed. Now it's going to get a little messy if I turn on all the layers, but if you want to see any permitted discharges that have a permit to discharge into these water bodies, you can turn on that layer, and I'm going to turn off monitoring for now. You can also turn off water bodies if you want. And then the permitted discharges will show up here in this watershed. And when you click on the discharger, it will show you who it is. This is the Kennedy Center. Interesting, I never clicked on that one. The JFK Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts. in DC, and you can see the compliance status, the permit status, if it had a significant violation in the past 3 years. This hasn't. If there's been an inspection. This is coming from our enforcement and compliance database, and the NIFTY's permit number is right there. And also, if you want more information, this link will take you to our ECHO enforcement and compliance database, and you can get more information. Say, if the Kennedy Center had a significant violation, you could click on it and find out more about it. There's also a list of water bodies on this page. So there's 2 ways to find out more information about these water bodies. You can click on them, and it will pop up on the map, and it will show you the year last reported. Here's 2018. And that's interesting. Okay, that's in Virginia. Okay, I know DC submitted 2020 data, so it's caught off guard for a minute. Yeah, watersheds do cross state lines. So you can see what it's been evaluated for. And each water body has a water body report page that I'll click on in a minute. So you can get the same information in the list here. So this is a list of water bodies here. You can get the same. Here we go. Year last reported 2020. So that's in DC. And you can see this water body is impaired for aquatic life. Condition unknown for fish and shellfish consumption. Recreation is also impaired. We have a list of impairment that were identified, and we also have a glossary in How's My Waterway, and we've linked several of the words in here to it because we want to make this understandable for the general public. So if you click on any word that's underlined, a glossary will pop up here on the right, and you can find out more about what bacteria and other microbes are and what you can do about it. There's also, you can also open the glossary too at the top of the page and just scroll through the 90-some terms in here as well. So there's some cool features I want to show you that you can do with the map. So I'm on a laptop here, and so the map's a little small, but if you're on a bigger screen, of course, everything would be bigger. But if you want to make the map full screen, you can click this button down here on the bottom right where I have my mouse. There is a legend on the bottom left if you want to find out what you're looking at. We have the Huck 12 boundary there. The water body is good, it's green. Some other information. You can zoom in and out with the plus and minus buttons, and then you can get back to the original map with pressing the home button. So I'm going to expand this to full screen. So there are a few layers here you can turn on besides the ones I showed you. So here if you go to the upper right corner of my screen, I just turned on the layer list. You can change the base map. So we've decided to do a light gray canvas as the default. Is just kind of plain. But if you want to get more fancy with your base map, you can click on streets. And since I'm in a city, it's nice to see the streets where I am. Or you can do imagery, which is pretty cool. There, you can do topographic and terrain. You can also do a dark canvas. I'm not going to click on all of them right now, but that just shows you some of the requested base maps that we have in here. There's also some layers that I showed already, like dischargers and monitoring. So there's also a watershed layer. Now, to show this better, I'm going to go back to light gray canvas, where I clicked outside of this watershed boundary, but if you turn on the watershed layer, that will turn on. I'm going to zoom out a little. That's going to turn on all the small watersheds around you. So you see this purple outline here. Those are all the Huck 12s around this Huck 12. And so you know where to click if you wanted to get another watershed. Where I grew up in Reston, Virginia, is somewhere around here. So I click on that, and then I could change my location to there if I want to explore that watershed. We also have a county layer. We'll show the county boundaries. So you can find out what, and if I turn the watershed on too, there we go. You can find out what counties or county, there might be multiple counties that your watershed crosses. And this is obviously DC, this square, but then we have more counties up here in Maryland, the outline there. Okay, the next layer I want to show. So The water bodies we're showing on the map are the water bodies that have been assessed by DC and Virginia here in this watershed. So, of course, there are more water bodies than what you're seeing. So this is all the mapped water, and that's coming from our national hydrography data set. And so this is all the water that's been mapped by EPA and USGS in the US. And if you see one in blue that hasn't been assessed by the state, you can request that water body. You can contact your state and request that they actually assess that water body. So I can see here in DC, of course, there's these streams up here that I don't see data for. So I might want to contact District of Columbia and ask them to assess that. Another feature we just added is congressional districts. So you can see which congressional districts your water bodies are in. And if you click on it, you can find out what member of Congress is in that district, and you can contact them if you want to talk about that watershed. And one last layer we just added is tribal areas. So you can see tribal boundaries if you click on, and I know DC does not have any tribal areas, so I'm going to show you Oklahoma real quick. So click on the next tab here. So this is Tulsa, Oklahoma, and I turned on the tribal boundary layer, and all the tribal boundaries show up in gray. So let me turn that off real quick. So that's it off. Turn it on, and you can see there's a lot of tribes around here. So if you click on the dark gray area, you can find out which tribe is there. Cherokee Nation is right there. That's a way to find out where the tribes are around your water. Also, I should mention we plan to have tribal data in House My Waterway eventually, very soon, the next coming months. So right now we just have the boundaries listed. So that's the overview page, and that's a lot. That's a lot of information just on the overview page, but let me show you real quick. I know sometimes these pages have a lot of text, so you might, if you want to just turn off the text, there's a little switch here in the upper right where my mouse is. You can turn off the text and just get right to the data in layers. And as I click through, you'll see some pages that have more text than this page as well. Also, if you want to know what watershed you've landed in, we listed at the top here. So this is the Pimmet Run, Potomac River watershed, and the HUC 12 number. If you're familiar with HUC 12 numbers, we have it right here. You can also search in the search box by HUC 12 number, and you can also search in this box for lat longs as well. I forgot to mention that before, and it will come up in House My Waterway. Okay, so moving on. Oh, actually, one more thing I forgot to show you. So I mentioned the water body report page. So when you click on any water body in House My Waterway, you'll see this information on the use and what it's impaired for. And I should mention, we have made these terms more user-friendly than what the states have submitted to us. We made them, so there may be more terms that are used that we've compiled into just the use aquatic life or fish and shellfish consumption and recreation. And then also the impairment, bacteria and other microbes may be referred to as pathogens or something else. So when you click on the water body report page, and this exists for every water body that will come up when you search for something. This is the information right here that the District of Columbia or a state or we do have territories in here as well, has submitted to EPA. So as I mentioned, we saw recreation on the previous page, but what they've submitted is primary contact recreation that has been rolled up into just the word recreation. Stuff like protection of human health related to consumption of fish and shellfish consumption is just fish and shellfish consumption. So you'll see this is exactly what DC submitted, and you can click on it and get more information. It's a little more detailed here than what you would see on the overview page. And then you'll get more information about the water, if it's 303 delisted, if it needs a TMDL, where it's located, and then what type of water right here. We also have probable sources contributing to impairments. We've listed them. It's what has been submitted to us by DC, separate storm sewer systems there, a municipal urbanized high density area, but these are not confirmed. And then potential sources, and then urban stormwater. And also, if the water body has a TMDL, it is listed on this page, and each TMDL has a separate TMDL page, much like this water body report page that I'll show in a few minutes. So for these, if you or someone else is interested in a specific water body, and instead of going to this app and searching for it, you can actually just copy and paste this URL and send it to someone and say, here's the water body that you're interested in. All these URLs are unique. So that's a good way of getting straight to that information. Okay. So back here on the community level, our next tab is swimming. I'm going to click that, and you can, this will change, the map will change and update the water bodies that have been assessed for swimming, and you'll see that some just turned green up here in the corner. So, and for the swimming condition, there's one that has been assessed as good here. And then you'll see the information about swimming and boating condition there. And you'll also see in these water bodies on the right, the impairments for just swimming and boating. So you can, not recommended to go swimming and boating on this creek because of bacteria and other microbes and degraded aquatic life. And DC doesn't have many good waters at the moment. So on the overview page, it showed the overall water body condition. If one use was impaired, all of them shows impaired, but on the swimming page, this just shows the status of all the waters that were assessed for swimming. Okay, the next tab is eating fish, or fish and shellfish consumption. If you don't know what that is, you can click on it and get a definition. Okay, so there's no good water bodies for fish and shellfish consumption here, but you'll see that 7 are impaired for that and 10 are condition unknown. If the condition's unknown, that means the water body was identified for a specific use but wasn't evaluated for it. So that's what the condition unknown means if you see the purple water body there. Also, since we know some of this information for some states and territories might not be the most recent for eating fish or fish advisories, so we've provided links here to each state that the watershed crosses their fish advisory websites for District of Columbia and Virginia. So you can actually click on those to get more recent information if they have it for eating fish in that watershed. Okay, the next tab is aquatic life. So the map changed there. And you'll see there's water bodies that are good for fish. So they're thriving in those water bodies over there on the left. And then a list of the water bodies that were assessed for aquatic life in that watershed. Okay, moving down the line. Actually, I'm going to pause for a minute before I get to the drinking water section, because that's a little different than what I just showed you, and see if there's any questions before I move on.
Thanks, Kiki. Yes, there are a few audience questions here. One question from an audience member asks, would municipal or county level watershed improvement plans be appropriate content for this app?
It does sound like that would be potentially if we had access to that data in some fashion. And I will show some restoration plans that we have as I move through the app as well along in the community level.
Okay, great, thanks. Another audience question we have, how will you maintain consistency with the data from state to state? And is anything being done to streamline the reporting of data that will eventually get added to this tool?
Well, the states all submit the data on the water bodies they've assessed, and some assess for different criteria, and they'll have different impairments and different standards that they assess the water bodies by. But they all need to submit it electronically to us through EPA. And then and there are a lot of states that the years, I mean, I know Florida, our data we're showing for Florida is from 2012, but hopefully we'll get more recent data from them soon. But yes, they all submit it electronically to EPA. And then streamlined, I'm not sure what you mean, but we've rolled up the common categories into what I mentioned, the swimming, eating fish, aquatic life, etc., to try to show a consistent picture for each state of what waters they've assessed. And I don't know if Dwayne or Stephanie want to add anything to that answer, but that's pretty much.
Yeah, this is Dwayne. Maybe just real quick.
Okay.
I think you handled that really well, Kiki. So in terms of standardizing the reporting, so we do try to stay true to what the state's actually reported. Although, as Kiki said, we do harmonize the terms that they use. So they all use slightly different pollutant terms, and so we harmonize those to some consistent terms. But then we still allow the individual to be able to see what the state actually reported if they want to get into that. We also harmonize the use names as well, just so that they're consistent as well. So all the recreation uses get rolled up into swimming, all the aquatic life types of uses like cold water, warm water, whatever they have get all rolled up into aquatic life, just to try to make that a little bit simpler. But we still do allow the public or the user to be able to see what the state actually reported. In terms of reporting and streamlining the reporting, so we have recently modernized to fully electronic reporting for all of the state assessment reports. So those are coming in through our Attain system. That's been online for a few years now, and states are now submitting that electronically, which is why you can actually see the DC 2020 data. It used to take us a couple years to get that data out. Now we're able to turn around about a month.
Great, thanks Dwayne, thanks Kiki. Another audience question here, is there a way to download the data in a tabular format?
So right now, the only spot in the app, which I'm going to show you very soon, to download data is the water monitoring tab. But in the future, we want to move towards being able to download more data from the app, the other data. But there are I should mention, all our data is available publicly. I mean, all our data, yes. You can use our services, our web services, to get the data through that way, but not in a tabular, in a web service JSON format. You can use our services now because it's all public. And in the future, we'd like to have more spots where you can download it. Thank you.
Great, thanks Kiki. And we'll have one last audience question at this time. Are any of these data layers available as a WMS for integrating with other mapping tools?
So yeah, So WMS, I'm not sure what that is, but we can. I'm going to talk a little about integration with other mapping tools after this demo, but we are moving towards an option for people to do that. We don't have it yet, but you can use our web services to pull in the data, and if your mapping tool allows you to pull in web services, you can get the data that way.
Okay,
is
great.
that it? Okay.
At this time, let's just keep moving just so we make sure you guys have time to finish your presentation.
Sure. So the next tab is drinking water, and this is a little different. There's a lot of text on this page, as you'll see. If you don't like the text, you can turn it off, get right to the data. I'll turn the text back on so I can explain what we're looking at. So when you come here, the drinking water tab, you can first see who provides the drinking water here, which is the county, so that you can see the outline of DC here. And we can't show locations of the actual drinking water systems, but these are coming from our safe drinking water. Coming from our Safe Drinking Water Information System database, and we have a lot of explanation here on this page of what you're seeing. So these are all the public water systems serving the county of Washington, D.C. And starting with the largest one, population served is almost the whole population of the city, which is 632,000. If you click on it, you can get more information here. If there's been a health-based violation, if it's active, what kind of water system the source is surface water. And if you want more details, you can go off to the Safe Drinking Water database here, and you can find out more information about those health-based violations and other stuff as well. And then there's some smaller systems very interesting. One is a hotel, population served 780, Naval Observatory, where the vice president resides. All sorts of systems here that I didn't know about. And then you can filter by source, because I think these are all surface water, but if there were other sources, it would filter by surface water and groundwater, but these are all surface water here. And then name, you can filter by name. So those are all the public water systems serving this county. The next tab is who withdraws water for drinking here. And you'll get an outline of the watershed here. So this will show all the entities that are withdrawing water from this watershed. They might be, excuse me, they might be using this water in a system outside this watershed, but they are withdrawing the water here. So there's only one here, which is Washington Aqueduct Division, withdrawing the water. And then if you click on that, you'll get more information about that system, the same information, the same link to the drinking water database there. And some areas have a ton of different systems. Some have, especially groundwater. If you go to Maine, there's a ton of groundwater. And so private wells and stuff like that, there'll be like a list of 50. I'm in a small area right now, so there's not much. But you can filter by groundwater or surface water if you happen to be in an area that has a ton of groundwater too, to see what systems are there. The last tab on the drinking water page is which waters have been assessed for drinking water use. And that's kind of like the same as I showed you for eating fish and swimming and aquatic life. If there's any water that has been identified as a potential source, a future source of drinking water pre-treatment, it would show up here. And since there's not any in DC, I'm going to click here, and I have Denver, Colorado here, where they have identified potential sources of future drinking water. And you'll see right here, there's one that was assessed good for future drinking water use. And you'll see Cherry Creek, find out more information about that water body, and then a list right there. And I'm curious here just to click on these others to see if we see a longer list of, not in Denver, but that is we do have a groundwater system, groundwater, people that withdraw groundwater from that watershed, and who provides drinking water there in the county that's around Denver there. And for each of these water bodies, you can also click on the water body report page to find out more information on that drinking water and what they called it, what the state has called it as well before we rolled it up into the public friendly terms. Okay, going back to DC. So those are the drinking water pages. And now I'm going to move on. So you might want to, after you've clicked on all these tabs, well, who's monitoring the water besides the state, and what's going on here? So this is a page for each, so there are several monitoring locations in this watershed, and it can be monitored by states, federal, tribal, local agencies, even universities, volunteers, and others. Anyone can submit their monitoring data to EPA. You just have to follow a process to match our database schema and have it approved, and it will show up here. We have volunteer groups and NGOs submitting data that does show up on the monitoring page after it's approved. And this is coming from the Water Quality Portal, which is a website that has all this monitoring data that's been submitted to USGS and EPA. And so we're pulling that data from there. And so you can see there's tons of monitoring locations in DC. And if you click on them, you'll get more information. This is from the Chesapeake Bay program. And you can see they've gotten 77 monitoring samples, 300 measurements. And this is where you can download the data. So the water information that these stations have are on nutrients, physical, microbiological, biological, there's a ton of categories. And then you can download the Excel or CVS spreadsheet. We've also linked, if you want to get more information, this will take you directly to the Water Quality Portal where you can actually get more information, play around with it a little more. You can also get this information in a list. You click on that station and you'll see it a little bigger here. You can download this data right here. This data, the time frame, I get a lot of questions about. This can be any time from 1959 to the present, and to find out where the date on this data, you need to download the spreadsheet and find the tab that has activity start date, which will show you the year that it was captured. In the future, we do plan to have a date slider on here, so you could slide, say, the slider to 2015, and you could get more recent data, or you could get from 1959 if you really want to. You can filter here if you know the organization. You want to filter by organizations just to see what organizations have submitted. It will show you organization IDs here, and then you can open it to see that this was National Park Service, Water Resources Division. So you can see a whole bunch of different stuff, different organizations submitting the data. You can filter by monitoring site ID or the number of measurements that were taken as well. And then up here at the top, so right now all the monitoring locations are turned on, but say you're interested, you just want to know, you just want data on metals that are in the water. So you can just turn on metals, and then you can download the data on metals that was captured. Or you can turn on several, so you want nutrients and metals. So those stations have information on nutrients and metals, and maybe you're interested in sediment because you want to work on green infrastructure planning. So you turn on those three, and you can get the data for all of those three categories. Or you can just turn off and just get one, or you can turn them all on and get all the data there. And you can, and you can't download all the stations at once on this application, but you can click on each station and download them individually. So that's why filtering helps, because there'll be less for each category there. And like this page, with any other page with the map, you can turn on a layer list, change the base map, turn on any other layers, and play with the map that way. Okay, so you've seen the monitoring, you've seen all the assessments from the states, and now you might be asking, well, what are the biggest issues in the watershed as a whole? Instead of clicking on each individual water body and finding out the impairments, you want to know, maybe you want to know the top issues in your watershed. So the next tab is identified issues. When you come here, you'll see 64% of the assessed waters in this watershed are impaired, which is interesting because to me, it looks like all of them are impaired. But I don't know. That might not be right. So you'll come here and you'll see, so these are the impairment categories for the whole watershed. And there's a lot of them. And of course, DC does have a lot of them. And if you can sift through these as well. So you're just interested in murky water here, which is actually turbidity, but we've called it murky water for the public. You can turn that on. Or you just want to see where the low oxygen is, just turn that on. Or you can turn multiple ones on, and then we'll show up. Nitrogen and phosphorus, the big ones. You can see what the impairments are there. Oh, and salt. Where's all the salt coming from? So yeah, so you can turn on and off, and you'll see the whole watershed at once for all these impairments listed. Just turn on acidity, and then you can turn them all on again. And also on this page, the dischargers I mentioned earlier, if there's a discharger with a significant effluent violation, it would show up on this page as well. We don't have any in DC, but I know I have a tab open in Pittsburgh. So I've just gone to Pittsburgh, and there is one discharger with a significant violation. So here, 100% of the assessed waters are impaired. And discharger with a significant violation is on, and it's right down here. You click on that, you'll see that is the Duquesne's flag. Sounds like a steel type manufacturer. And you'll see, yes, there has been a significant violation in the past 3 years. And so you can go here for this facility report to find out more. You also might be curious about this water body and the impairments in it. It's right next to discharger, metals. It's not surprising considering the company. Metals here, you get more definition about metals and what you can do about them in the glossary. And then you can filter too. So curious, metals are in more than one water body there. And then excess sediment. There's a lot more water bodies with excess sediment there. that's the Identified Issues tab. Now that you've seen that in the monitoring, you might be wondering what is being done to restore this watershed. So if you click on the Restore tab, you'll get an outline of the watershed. So we don't have location information yet on this page, but we plan to have them. We have projects here, non-point source pollution projects, and we have TMDL's restoration plans here. I'm going to go back to DC because I think there's more plans and projects. Just so you can see. So in DC, we have 25. This is from our Clean Water Act Section 319 grant database, a non-point source pollution grant. So we have 25 here in DC, and these, some of these are could just be a job description, which I found a lot, and there's even in Wisconsin, there's tons of public meetings listed, which is interesting. But here we have a DC school-based non-point source pollution prevention program and adult outreach. So this is a grant that was given to DC, and you click on it here, and you can find out the total funds, project start date 2017, if it's on schedule, and then you can open a project summary here. And this will take you right to our grants tracking database. You can get more information on that. Also, if there's any documents from this project, you can download them here, but there's not any on this one. So there's a bunch here. DC Watershed LID, Low Impact Development Retrofit Program. That's interesting. And they've listed some more information, the impairments, and no documents on this one, but there's a lot here. DC Watershed Habitat. So there's whatever is coming in this small watershed from our GITS database will show up here. I'm very interested in this right now, scrolling through here, but I won't spend too much time on there. That's a place where you can get all our non-point source pollution projects. Okay, the next tab is restoration plans, and these are mostly TMDLs that are coming from our ATTAINS database, our assessment and TMDL database. And so DC has 23 plans, and a lot of them have the same name, but you'll see there's different ID numbers. So if I click on one, Battery Kimball Creek, I will find out more information about that TMDL. EPA final, the TMDL, I think 97% of the plans in our database are TMDL. Sometimes they're watershed plans, but most of the time they're TMDLs. And just like the water body report page, each TMDL or each restoration plan in this app has its own page. So I'm going to click on Open Plan Summary. Well, dictionary popped up. Fancy. I didn't know my computer did that. Okay. So now you'll come to a plans page. And each plan in House My Waterway has a unique URL at the top. If you or someone you know is just interested in this TMDL, you can copy and paste this website link and send it to them, and then they'll just get information on here. Also, if you have an application or a website and you just want to link to this TMDL, you can use our URL and do that directly. So this will give more information on this plan. A document here, a PDF that you can download and read, the impairments address, E. coli, and the waters that were covered, which are already on, which we show on the map there as well. And then, of course, we link back to the water body report if you need to go there. And so you get more information about what DC submitted there. So for each of these, there'll be a separate plans page. Okay, moving on to the community level, I have one more tab, and it's the Protect tab. And so we want to inspire people to want to restore and protect their watersheds. So we have a bunch of tips here that we're enhancing very soon to include more on what you can do in your community, schoolyard, and home to protect your watershed. And if we have any protection projects coming from GRITS, they're listed here. There aren't any in this watershed. In the very near future, we plan to enhance this page and have more information here on healthy watersheds and watershed health scores and protected areas. So we'll have more on the map, but if you have any suggestions for this page, please let us know. Okay, so that is the entire community level, and I still have the state and national level to show, but I want to stop there real quick to see if we have a couple questions before I move on.
Hello, Kiki. Yes, we do have a couple questions. An audience member asked, Does your interface show if the water body is used as a drinking water supply?
It doesn't. It shows it just if it was assessed for it to be a potential future source of drinking water.
Okay, great, thanks. Another audience question here. Someone asked that they checked their water body and the bulk of the information they found says condition unknown. How can more information be populated?
So you could contact your state, and so that was the definition. Condition unknown is when a water body is identified for use but has not been assessed for that use, and that does not mean that it hasn't been assessed in the past, and it doesn't mean it couldn't be assessed in the future. So the best way to contact your state and request them to assess that water body.
Great, thanks. Another question. Are projects that have an EPA 9-element watershed plan going to be identified and linked?
I'm not sure. I think I mentioned that there could be watershed plans in the restore page, but I'm not sure if that kind of watershed plan would be there. I don't know, Dwayne, if you have any other insight into that.
Yeah, it depends. There's two ways that those watershed plans can show up in How's My Waterway. One, if they're entered in through grits, then they'll show up here in How's My Waterway. Or alternatively, if they're entered into attains as like an alternative plan, an alternative restoration plan, they would show up as well. So those are the two ways that they can get in there.
Great, thanks, Dwayne. Thanks, Kiki. Another audience question here. A comment and then a question. Someone said it would be great for local governments to be able to submit data so that it shows up for the community level interface. And then a question, how do we submit data specifically for restoration plans?
Well, right now we're showing the data that the state has. So I'm not sure where that type of organization is, who asked that question, but right now, unless it's coming from the state, we're not showing it in How's My Waterway.
With Kiki, if I can jump in real quick, with one exception,
sure.
Yeah, and that's the monitoring data. So on the monitoring data tab, we show any data that has been published to the water quality portal through the Water Quality Exchange, WQX. So all of that data shows up. So if a county or local level has collected monitoring data, and I think this question was asking about monitoring data specifically, then that monitoring data that has been published through the portal would show up here in How's My Waterway.
Thanks. Yeah, that's a good point. And we'd be happy to work with you to be able to show you how to submit that data if you wanted to for monitoring.
Great, thanks, Dwayne. Thanks, Kiki. At
Sure.
this time, let's keep moving forward.
Okay, great. So next tab is state, and this is, you're going to get a comprehensive view of the data I just showed by watershed, kind of a summary at the state level of what I showed. And so you come to the state page and you can choose your state or territory here. And I'm gonna, for some reason, I really like showing New Jersey. Don't ask why, I just like it. So I picked New Jersey, and so what we're showing on this page is every 2 years the state submits an integrated report to EPA about their state water quality. And so we're showing it electronically here instead of you having to read a file. So when you come here, you'll see New Jersey has given us 3 fun facts about their waters. We have 19-some thousand rivers and streams, 1,000 or 2,000, almost 2,000, well, 1,000 estuarine or local ocean area square miles, and 47,900 reservoirs and lakes areas. So these are just fun facts that the state submitted. These aren't in the integrated report, and also a paragraph about each state's water quality program that they submit through our database to us. And what you'll see underneath, this is the integrated report that was submitted to EPA. Now we're showing it in electronic form. So when you come here, you can choose a topic: swimming, eating fish, aquatic life, drinking water, and other. So we wanted to be consistent with the community page. And when you choose a topic, you can choose a water type. I'm going to click on lakes, and you'll see the chart updates. So if I click on swimming, I'm interested in the status of waters that were assessed for swimming in lakes and reservoirs. For primary contact recreation, you'll see that how many acres were assessed good, impaired, and insufficient info overall in the state. In the year this was reported was 2016, so that data is a little older than the DC data I was showing. If I pick rivers and streams, the chart updates, and it also will show the top reasons for impairment for what you selected. For New Jersey, rivers and streams assessed for primary contact recreation, which Dwayne explained is most likely swimming. So if you open that, you'll see most common impairment there is bacteria and other microbes, and you'll see the percentage of the waters that are impaired and the miles that contain that impairment. And this will change as you click different topics, like eating fish, not doing as well as swimming, and you'll get more top reasons for impairments in New Jersey, statewide. And the aquatic life will do the same thing, and the chart keeps updating depending on what you pick. And you'll see these are the uses the state submitted. Aquatic life trout is different than aquatic life, but we rolled that up on the community page into just the category aquatic life. I should mention we worked really closely with the states on this application for almost 2 years, and they felt it was really important to include the uses that they submitted on this page instead of our rolled up ones. So it's just interesting to click through and see. We have shellfish harvesting is different than fish consumption here. And then there's a drinking water tab, which will show the data on waters assessed for drinking water use statewide, which is called public water supply here. And we do things a little differently on this tab. For each state, we have more drinking water information here that's coming from our drinking water information system. You can find out how many systems are in your state here, and it shows a little graph by type, community water system, and then there's 2 other system types that you might want to learn about if you don't know. And we've defined them up here: transient, non-community, and non-transient, non-community water system. And then we have some quarterly stats for each state. So for quarter 3, 2020, there's been 65 violations of drinking water, 37 systems in violation, and it will show the population served in violation, the total population served, systems in compliance, and then systems served in compliance. So this will be updated every quarter. And then for each state, we have documents that they've submitted to us on their integrated report. So if you want to read more about what you're seeing in those charts above, you can download these documents and read them. Some states do a statewide statistical survey. Then they would have those documents there. And then the water stories I was talking about at the beginning of this presentation, the non-point source pollution success stories, we have them here that you can click on, and you'll get a PDF that comes up if you click on any of these, and you can read more about those success stories. In the future, we'd like to get all sorts of stories here, just not just the non-point source pollution ones. But right now, these are the ones we have so far. And then if you want to contact your state, there's links here. We're collecting any other links the state wants to submit through our database can go here. We've just started using this service, so we just pretty much have one for each state. But some states will link to their drinking water program too, and other programs. So that, go to the top. There's also an other tab. Some uses don't fit in anywhere, so they would come under other here, but we don't have any for New Jersey. So that's the integrated report. The next tab on the state page is an advanced search page, and this is a pretty cool feature of How's My Waterway, where you can see all the water bodies at once for the state instead of going by HUC 12, and you can filter by parameter groups, which were these impairment categories for each state. You can filter by uses, drinking water, recreation, aquatic life, etc. You can search for just a particular watershed. You can type it in, it will come up. Or you can search for just one water body and find out more information, and I'll show you in a minute. Say you're just interested in all the water bodies in New Jersey that have a TMDL, you can just click this Has TMDL button and search. And then we get a little more in the weeds here because this was requested for people that were more advanced users. If you want all the 303 delisted impaired waters, those are waters that need a TMDL, you can click that. Or if you just want all the impaired waters, you can click that bubble, or you can click multiple bubbles. So right now I'm just going to search because this will show all the water bodies that were assessed by New Jersey, which is 958. And that's not a lot compared to some other states. Sometimes we have thousands or hundreds of thousands, but so here you'll see New Jersey's used polygons, so the whole state's covered. But this is all the overall water body condition and everything that was assessed here. You can also get a list, which will list all those waters. And you can click on the list to find out more information about each water body. You can also click on the map, and that will come up. So now you might want to filter this down a little. So say you're doing some planning, and you want just to know where, I'm going to scroll down here. So you just want to know where nitrogen and phosphorus, which waters were assessed for nitrogen and phosphorus. So you could redo the search, and then 668 results, a little less. And then those waters will come up. That's the overall condition. And say you just want to know about nitrogen and phosphorus. So there are the impairments of nitrogen and phosphorus, the water bodies that are impaired in red. And then you can click and get that information. And you can get the list that I showed as well. You can add several of these groups at a time. And then you can pick a use too, say recreation, and search that. And you can have a lot of fun with this tool, doing different combinations. And we'll come up and just show you the whole state at once. So there's the overall water body condition. I'm going to pick recreation, and that comes up there. And then if I turn these off, and you just want to know where the TMDLs are, you can search again. And there are all the TMDLs. And you'll get a list of all of them as well. So you can do that for every state. And then all the impairment categories will update for every state depending on where those impairments are. I just picked salts. Again, I'm having fun. I have not picked that before, just curious. There you go. Those are where the salt impairments are, the ones in red. And of course, like all the other maps, you can expand and turn on different base maps and layers. So that's the state page. I'm going to move on to the national page. So our national page will explain it. We have an overall explore national water quality. We highlight an important issue, which is excess nutrients in our water bodies, and we're pulling some data from our National Aquatic Resource Surveys, NARS, about the health of rivers and streams, lakes, coasts, and wetlands in the U.S. And you can click on these and find out more information about how we're doing. And if you want to learn more about the NARS program, you can click on each of these wetlands, coasts, lakes, and rivers and streams at the bottom, and you can go to their website. You can actually download their data through those websites as well. We also have a national drinking water tab. We provide information about our drinking water program, what we think you should know about the basics, how to request a consumer confidence report. We also have what I showed on the state page, which is the water systems by type, but we have them nationally. So you'll see that the number of violations and systems and violations across the nation, population served, 314 million, and the systems in compliance nationally, and the population served in compliance nationally. This page in the future, we want to add more information about our state revolving fund infrastructure loans and where all that money's going. That's the future plan that we have. We want to definitely put more information on this national page in the future. So if you have any ideas, we'd love to hear it. 2 more pages I'll go over really quick. We have at the top here an about page, which will tell you a little more about what you're seeing in How's My Waterway on the community page, the state page, and national page, and also some frequently asked questions here. And then we have a data page. So all that data I've been talking about and all the databases here are listed. We have links to all those databases there and where you're seeing this data. We have a little sentence that explains where you're seeing this data in How's My Waterway as well. Like the ECHO data is the enforcement data that's the permitted dischargers on the community tab. And finally, we have this little filtering tool. Now, I mentioned the states submit certain words for these impairments, and we take those impairments and group them in our database into a group. So you'll see chlorophyll A here would be grouped into algal growth in our database for all 50 states and territories. And then How's My Waterway converts into public-friendly terms. So algal growth has become excess algae. So if you're curious about what something's become, you can search for something like bacteria. You can see what it started as, all these pathogens, bacterial slimes, viruses, etc., has been grouped into pathogens, and then it comes out as bacteria and other microbes. So if you see something in impairment and you're curious, you can go to this tool and it will come up when you type it in. They're mainly doing that because the states were like, what did our submission, what did that become? So they would enter in what they submitted in this column, and then they could see what it became in How's My Waterway in the left column. So that's our filtering tool from our Attains database. And if you want to contact us, there's a contact us form. You can send us an email, and that will go directly to me, and then we'll get back to you as soon as we can. And that is How's My Waterway. And I'll stop there and give it back to Stephanie to conclude the presentation before we have our final questions.
Okay. Thank you so much, Kiki, for the demo. That was definitely a lot of information we threw at you guys. And as you could see, it's probably worth jumping online and playing around with the tool yourself and finding out what kind of features resonate the most with you and for your work and for your needs. And as you can see, aside from general water quality questions, How's My Waterway can help water resource managers also visualize their water management needs and actions in a given space so that efforts can be better coordinated across programs and goals. So these next couple of slides, I'm going to breeze through as quickly as possible. We're really meant to help answer a couple of questions posed by the green infrastructure community that Matt shared with us in advance of the webinar. So Colby, if you can advance to the next slide. Perfect. Okay, so the first is thinking about collaborative water quality management, not just in a localized space, but on a broader scale. So with GI, we're often thinking about stormwater runoff, not only in the immediate area, but also the effects that are going to happen downstream, and where we can best locate green infrastructure practices to improve water quality both locally and within that broader regional context. So as Kiki mentioned, right now there's a couple different ways in which you can use How's My Waterway to pinpoint where location-wise those projects make the most sense. So turning on and off those different base layers to see what is already happening and where. So pulling up where TMDLs are present, impaired waters listings that perhaps don't have a TMDL in place yet, those 319 projects that might be in place, and then even looking at the identified issues tab for monitoring information. So is what you're trying to do targeting sediments or other stormwater related impairments? And then also thinking about in the future, as Kiki mentioned, you know, where are the dollars going? Where are the SRF monies going? Where are those projects located? Maybe the Healthy Watershed Program grants, where are they being put to good use? And then thinking about tribal and regional data toggles that might be added in the future. So, you know, looking across those county lines, across other different artificial boundaries, if you will, and thinking about where those shared water resources lies and who's doing what. So if there's a specific county that does have a plan in place or actions in place to address a waterway that goes into your district, is it worth reaching out to them to work on a joint solution? And then also thinking about going beyond Clean Water Act and Safe Drinking Water Act programs to include coordination with other agencies. So green infrastructure can help secure other transportation infrastructure, conservation easements, and even state land acquisitions. So thinking about where FEMA, HUD, Army Corps, and other efforts like the Naturally Resilient Communities Partnership Organization are working to put in similar projects that achieve joint goals. And I think we can go to the next slide. Okay, so another way that House My Waterway can be particularly useful is with thinking about the implementation of green infrastructure projects, whether they're housed in a state or local hazard mitigation plan, a 319 plan for the state 319 program, or another kind of overall overarching water resource planning document that a locality has, or that is a kind of a blanket for the state. So one of the institutional barriers that we often hear about with GI project implementation is the perception that a performance is unknown or you just can't quantify it. So while House My Waterway does right now have some obvious ways in which you could use monitoring data as a proxy for measuring perhaps those trends over time or just improvements where that project goes in, there's other more socioeconomic benefits and ways in which I think in the future, incorporating perhaps environmental justice data layers. So we have a tool at EPA called EJ Screen, maybe thinking about some of those similar parameters, thinking about SRF dollars, again, where they're going in and they're creating other benefits for the local or regional economy that go beyond the environment. And for now, relying on those nearby monitoring sites that can help you track that performance or changes in water quality standards. And 319 grants is included in that currently. The app can also help align water management goals and other community, environmental, and economic goals. GI solutions are some of the most common approaches with multiple benefits or co-benefits, as many people call them. For example, green infrastructure programs are working very closely these days with their state and local hazard mitigation programs to achieve common goals. So thinking about the kind of work that EPA has most recently been involved with addressing flooding or designing waterscapes for flood reduction purposes and stormwater drainage along the coast to manage flooding and other issues that are related to sea level rise or lake level rise, and even heat island reductions, while also thinking about helping communities meet regulations that they need to meet under the Clean Water Act or other environmental statutes with TMDLs. If a TMDL is already in place or will be going in place, or what are ways that we can thinking about maybe meeting similar flooding goals or similar goals related to air quality and wildfires and other restoration type efforts. And in the future, we'll be looking at incorporating upstream and downstream capabilities. So that's a little bit more obvious where the impacts of that project may occur, and also a separate page for each monitoring station showing USGS stream gauge data. So you not only have that water quality piece, but you have that water quantity piece as well that can help with some of these similar efforts. And then next slide, super quick. So we talked about how, and Kiki demonstrated how How's My Waterway has a lot to offer in terms of scalability and also looking at an individual site. So GI is often implemented, as you well know, at multiple scales. It can go from a very small site within a neighborhood or looking at an entire watershed and the region in which it resides. And so using the mapping tool, you can really figure out how that individual project for protection or restoration fits within, quite literally, that broader regional green infrastructure implementation plan or other water quality priorities. So for now, we do have those 3 main and different scales that will allow you to look across that watershed space and see what issues are prime and where they're located and prioritize those areas for action. How's My Waterway can also help communities coordinate better those large-scale projects that cross city boundaries to address water quality concerns at the most effective scale. So thinking again about that downstream effect, and then as Kiki mentioned, there's many different layers that you can turn on to kind of see where those jurisdictions lie, and where those either other stakeholders are active or other local governments are active and which you can work with and kind of leverage that expertise. And then a last slide, I think here, on funding information and case studies. Kiki touched a little bit on the case studies that are available for our non-point source success stories, which are great. Hopefully we'll have more information in the future on where other activities are going from other organizations. And we know that it's really tough to be able to fully implement these types of projects, to find sources of revenue that can not only pay for a project up front, but pay for the long-term implementation and operation and maintenance of that effort. And so, you know, we are thinking long and hard about what grants, loans, and other sources of funding can we show here about what projects are being funded or could potentially be used to pay for green infrastructure projects. So for now, we mentioned those 319 grants. In the future, SRFs and maybe Healthy Watershed Program grants, which is another program we have at EPA. And then maybe even thinking a little bit more broadly for other community partners like civic associations, watershed groups, nonprofits, and even other federal or state agencies that can play a role in those green infrastructure solutions. So How's My Waterway can help really align in a mapping sense those public and private interests and those investments long term. And then next slide. So this slide is really just all about, we hope that today was informative to your work and that you'll share this resource with partners you work with who would benefit from the information. The green infrastructure community is what is essential in making How's My Waterway an engaging and a comprehensive story, and a great way in which you can also involve others in absorbing and contributing to the narrative of that story. So we hope everybody who comes into contact with How's My Waterway will feel empowered to communicate water quality information to their communities and those in which they work with to protect and restore their waters, identify new opportunities for green infrastructure application, and then even new partners to complete those projects and new resources that may be leveraged for effective and long-term implementation. So with that, I think we're going to close. We are going to move on, I think, 2 questions, even though we're a little bit out of time because we did take them during the webinar. But on this next slide for questions, we do have a contact email box where you can feel free to contact us follow up with any comments that you may have, questions, ideas for future functionality. As Kiki mentioned, this is an evolving tool, and we're happy to hear your feedback. And with that, I'm going to hand it back to Matt and Colby for any other questions or information. But that concludes our presentation for today.
Thank you, Stephanie, and thank you, Kiki, and thank you, Dwayne. Just have time for one last question here. An audience member asked, are there opportunities for local organizations or municipalities to submit related content that the tool can display or link to? For example, stormwater education websites or story maps.
So this is Steph. So I think that is the hope, and something that when How's My Waterway was being developed, we were brainstorming a lot about, because like I mentioned, there are those other efforts just outside of the federal or state space that are going on, and it would be great to make people aware of those general efforts so that they could engage in them themselves, they could get more information. And as Kiki mentioned with the slide earlier on in the presentation about how How's My Waterway kind of collects all this information and rolls it up, similar to how like the Weather Channel app does, for that you may access every day to check out, you know, what's the latest forecast going to be. It would be awesome to plug that information in to How's My Waterway as well. There are some considerations that we have to think through on what kind of content we share, navigating that, and also what kind of structure the data is in for us to be able to kind of like have information geolocated to show up on that map-centric design. But I'll let Dwayne weigh in here as well, and Kiki.
Honestly, yep, I don't have anything else to add to that. I think you covered it well, Stephanie.
This is Kiki. Yeah, great idea. We'd love in the future maybe to have a stories page. We could incorporate all sorts of stories, or maybe a regional page where we can incorporate different regions. But that's still in the thinking stages. So thanks for that question.
Great, thank you, Stephanie, Kiki, and Dwayne. We did just send out the URL to the My Waterway landing page, so feel free to check that out. And with that, I'll hand things back to Matt for closing remarks.
Thanks, Colby. I want to mention to our attendees that a recording of today's webcast will be made available at www.epa.gov/green infrastructure in approximately a week. We'll send out an email notification to our attendees so that you can share today's webcast with folks that perhaps wanted to attend today but were unable. I want to offer a heartfelt thanks to Stephanie, Kiki, and their colleague Dwayne Young for sharing their expertise with us today. How's My Waterway is a dynamic tool, and we hope that it's something that green infrastructure practitioners are going to be able to get a lot of use out of. So Stephanie, Kiki, Dwayne, we really appreciate you taking the time today to demonstrate its capabilities. Likewise, I want to thank our audience for joining us. You can check out future webcast offerings by visiting www.epa.gov/green infrastructure. Thank you for tuning in, and I hope you all have a great day.